Hello, everyone. Welcome to the theory class. Today we're covering lesson 34, and we're going to start with our evaluation with lesson 33. Here we go. Ready? Number 1, sanction. Sanction. Number 2, wrinkle. Wrinkle. Is that a wrinkle that I see? Number 3, idea. Idea. Number 4, sprawl. Sprawl. My cat likes to sprawl out on the couch. Number 5, junk. Put the junk in the trash. Number 6, distinct. Distinct. He has a distinct appearance. Number 7, circumstance. Circumstance. Number 8, yank. Don't yank on her hair. Number 9, straight. She has straight hair. Number 10, sprout. That will sprout up. Number 11, distinction. Distinction. Number 12, uncle. Uncle. Number 13, string. Pull the string. Number 14, flunk. Did you flunk the test? And number 15, again. Let's do it again. All right, let's look those over. All right, so number 1 is sanction. That's going to be written as S, long A, with the flag, NGS. And we flag it so it doesn't look like an unshun word, but more of the unction word, sanction, or cushion, I should say. All right, sanction. Number 2, wrinkle. That's going to be written as W-R-I, short I with the flag, N-K, come back for final L. And again, we're flagging it so it looks like we read it as unk, wrinkle, the N-K sound, as opposed to N-G sound. So it doesn't look like ring. Okay, number 3, the brief idea, initial Y, final D. Number 4, sprawl, S-P-R-A-U-L, sprawl. Number 5, junk, initial J, U with the flag, N-K. And again, we're flagging it so it looks like an unk word and not jung. Okay, number 6, distinct, D-I-S. Come back for T, flag, I-N-K. Again, we flag it so it looks like the N-K instead of disting. Then we have the brief circumstance, S-I-R-K, circ. Yank, Y, long A with the flag, N-K. Again, if we didn't flag it, it would look like yang. Number 9, straight, S-T-R, long A, G-T. Sprout, S-P-R-O-U-T. Then we have distinction, D-I-S. Come back for T-I with the flag, N-G-S. It's one of those unction words, so we have to flag it. Number 12, uncle. We have the flag, U-N-K. Come back for final L. Again, you don't want it to look like ungle, so we flag it for the unk sound. Number 13, string, S-T-R-I-N-G. Number 14, flunk, F-L-U with the flag, N-K. Again, if we didn't flag it, it would look like flung. He flung his towel across the room. And then number 15, the brief again, initial G-E-N. Okay. So again, like I always say, if you struggled with any of those, go back and practice them. And make sure and have that down before you move on to lesson 34. And lesson 34 is actually kind of a continuation of 33. All right. It's going to piggyback off of lesson 33. So let's look at 34.1. We have a word practice, and it says here, final BGS with the flag for words that end with ka-shun. So anytime we have words that end with the X, that's going to be written like, let's look at facts. Facts would be F-A-X, right? But if we have the word faction, we would write that as F-A with the flag, B-G-S. For the ka is the B-G, and then the shun is the G-S. So we flag it to have the ka-shun, okay? So again, for words ending with ka-shun, we write it as final BGS with the flag. And again, it makes sense because this is our ka and this is our shun. So we put it all together with the flag to have the ka-shun, okay? Now again, if you leave the flag off, it's just going to look like the final X because that's BGS. So that's why it's so important that you flag those words. All right. All right, so let's look at some of our words in 34.1. We have traction, T-R-A, flag, B-G-S for ka-shun. Section, S, flag, U, B-G-S, section. You didn't have this here, it would just look like sucks. There's our K and our S. That's what it would look like, or final X. Auction, A-U with the flag, B-G-S. Friction, F-R with the flag, I, ka-shun here. Fraction, F-R-A with the flag, ka-shun. Rejection, so we have our prefix re, and then come back for J, flag, E, ka-shun. Rejection. Addiction, A, come back for D, I with the flag, ka-shun, addiction. Prediction, P-R-E, come back for D, flag, I, ka-shun, prediction. Affliction, A, come back for F-L, I with the flag, ka-shun. Then we have defection. Now D, we need to write it as D long E so it doesn't look like did he. D, D long E, and then F-E with the flag, ka-shun, defection. Then we have projection, ejection. So don't forget any words that have the prefix D or E, we have to use a long E because we don't want the software to think it's did he or he. So that's why we have to use, those are our two prefixes that are different from everything else. All the other ones we use a short vowel, and those are the only two exceptions because we don't want our software to think it's did he or he. Then we have election. Now, if we didn't have that flag there, it looked like elects. Seduction, subtraction, conviction, abduction, distraction. So again, this is a lot like lesson 33 with the ka-shun words, unction, and so forth. It's very similar. Okay, we're just adding another ending where we have to flag so it doesn't conflict with the final X. Now, if you look over on 34.2, this is one of my my favorite sections of this chapter because I feel like it explains the conflict between the two. So let's look at these closer. We have complex, K-O-M, and then come back for P-L-E-X. She lives in the complex. Now, if we want to write complexion, we're going to write it as K-O-M. Come back for P-L with the flag, E, cation, complexion. Then we have fax, F-A-X, and faction, F-A flag, K-S, faction. Fix, F-I-X, fiction, F flag I, cation, fiction. Flex, F-L-E-X, flex, and then flexion, F-L flag E, cation, flexion. Reflex, R-E, come back for F-L-E-X, and reflection, R-E, come back for F-L flag E, cation. So those right there show you the differences between some of the words that have the final X and cation. And again, it doesn't conflict with all of the endings, but because we don't have time to think about what conflicts and what doesn't, we just have a blanket rule. Anything with the action or cushion, unction, we flag all of those so that we don't have that conflict. All right. Let's look at 34.3. We have practice sentences using our new cushion words. All right. And let's see here. I want you to look at line 7, second sentence over. It says, what are the restrictions? You can flag, or excuse me, you can phrase that whole thing. What are the? So we have what are the? And you're going to phrase that whole thing. What are the? W-H-A, final R-T. Looking down at line 11, it says, each confection looks fattening. So fattening, you're going to write fattening as F-A-T. And then you're going to come back for E-N, and then come back for G, fattening. All right, and let's see here. Looking down at line 18, second sentence over, it says, I have affection for Catherine. Now, Catherine is more than one syllable, so we don't have to flag it, but you're going to write Catherine as K-A-G-T, Kath. Come back for R-I-N, Catherine. All right. Now, if there's any other questions, maybe there's a word that I didn't point out and you're not real sure how to write it, just ask me. Or you can always write it, see if it comes up on your, see if your software recognizes it. Sometimes it doesn't because it just means that that word is not, it hasn't been placed in your dictionary yet. Doesn't mean that you're writing it incorrectly. But if you have any questions, let me know. Looking on over at the next page, 34.3, these sentences continue. If you look at line 22, second sentence over, it says convictions were up in June. We can phrase were up. It's going to be initial WR and UP together, were up. Now, if that looks too much like a word to you, then don't worry about it. You don't have to phrase that. That's just an option. Okay, I've had students ask me in the past, can you phrase were up? And you can. You don't get it very often, but you certainly can. Or you can just write were, come back for up. That's not one of those that's mandatory, more just because it kind of looks like a word. You know, it's not very far off from wrap, like wrap the present. And it doesn't come up very often as well, but it's up to you. I'm giving you the option. Okay, let's look at line 23. It says the Pope gave the benediction. Pope is capitalized, so you're going to flag that. P long O-P with the flag. All right, now let's look at line 29, second sentence over. It says the number of defections is up. Now is up, you're going to hear that more than we're up, and definitely phrase that. Initial S-U-P, sup. Now, if you ever hear something like what's up and they say sup, then you would flag that. You're probably not going to hear that very often, but I have had that question posed to me before. All right, looking at 34.3, practice sentences continue again on the next page. All of those look pretty self-explanatory. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. Make sure you go through and underline any phrases if that helps you. Never hurts to go through your homework and underline them before you actually do them. And 34.4, we've got word practices. Now, this is a review, but it's a very important review. The reason why we implement this is because it can be a little overwhelming once you see and hear these words. We've already gone over so many of these word endings that we wanted to give you just one section of review. So you're going to see some of these words will have the shun ending, just shun. So if it has just the shun, it's just GS. Then if you notice the next one over is unction, that one is flagged, NGS with the flag, unction. And then the last one is cushion with the flag, so it doesn't look like final X. All right? So that is what this 34.4 word practice is all about. It's just kind of throwing in all of these different words, and they're mixed up. Some will be shun, some will be unction, some will be cushion. Okay? All right. Again, some of these words may not come up on your dictionary. It just means that word hasn't been placed in there, and you'll start to add to your dictionary once you get into speeds. Okay. All right, so 34.4 is continued on the next page. Okay, again, everything looks very self-explanatory. Let's look at 34.5. We've got some new briefs. So let's look at these briefs. The first one is direct. Direct is going to be written as D-R-E-K, direct, direct. Then we have direction, and that is going to be written as D-R-E-K, shun with the flag. Again, we're following the same rule as what we've just learned. It's a kashun, so we're going to flag it. Now we've got second line, collect. And that's going to be written as K-L-E-K, collect. Then we have collection, K-L with the flag, E-K, or K-shun ending, collection. Correct, K-R-E-K, correct. Correction, K-R with the flag, E-K-shun, correction. Then we have connect, K-E-K, kek. Connection, K with the flag, E, K-shun. Okay, K. Connection is K flag E, shun. K flag E, BGS for the kashun. Then we have select, select, S-L-E-K, select. Selection, S-L with the flag, E, kashun, selection. And then if you notice, we have section. Now, section is going to be written as S-E with the flag, K-shun. The reason why we have to flag section is because it conflicts with sex. Sex is just written S-E, final X. There's our X. So that's why we have to flag section. Okay, line 6, automobile, A-U-B-L. And then we have vehicle, V long E-K, veek. Now, I have had students in the past ask me, do we really have to flag these briefs? Direction, collection, correction, because students have often said, there's nothing that conflicts with direction, like drex or clex or crex or kex or slex. And this is my answer. When you get into speeds, if you do not want to flag those briefs, you can change it, which means you would change it in your dictionary. And you can take that flag out because it doesn't conflict with anything for just those briefs if you want to. But while you're in theory, let's follow the rules, okay? So I'm telling you this not because I want you to create bad habits, but I know there's a fine line once you get into speeds with you want to build speed and you're trying to keep up with the reader, but you also want to write to perfection, and you want your notes to be clean. So because they do not conflict with anything, you can change it if you want, but don't do it in theory. Okay, you don't want to do that in theory. So that's something that's optional, and you can write yourself a little note. Once I'm in speeds, these briefs will be optional if I want to flag them, but you just have to change it in your dictionary. Now, obviously, section, that is not optional. You have to flag that, otherwise you're going to have a conflict with the word sex. Okay, that's why we have to flag section. Okay, but the other ones don't conflict, but don't do it until you get into speeds. All right, let's look at 34.6. And again, I feel like I can kind of tell you this because you are getting close to being in speeds, and this is kind of like when these questions start to come about. I think students start realizing, well, look, this is you know, when I get into speeds and there's a reader, you know, speaking at high rates of speeds, is it horrible if I want to take out those flags? And it's really not. Now, the other words, never. If it's a cushion, unction, you always want to flag those because you don't want to have a conflict. But with these briefs, I'll leave that up to you once you get into speeds, but not in theory. Okay. All right. Flag them in theory. Now, 34.6. That's a brief drill. Again, it's very self-explanatory. Just make sure you use a comma in between each brief. 34.7 are practice sentences. And let's look over on sentence 3, actually line 3, first sentence. It says, who will be the director? You can absolutely phrase will be the, and you absolutely want to phrase will be, because that can be phrased will be, but will be, that would be L, final BT, will be the. So it's actually possible. Now, if you don't want to phrase the whole thing, that's fine, but you must at least phrase will be, okay? All right. Now let's look at director. Who will be the director? We have our brief for direct. We just learned that direct is D-R-E-K, direct. Okay, but then for direct, but then we have to come back for tor. Now we want to come back for T-O-R, and we don't want to come back for a long O. And the reason being is because it conflicts with the word direct and tor, T-O-R-E. So you want to just come back for T-O-R, and you don't want it to be a long O, because you don't want your software to think that it's word direct and tor. Okay, so just come back for, write that director as D-R-E-K for the brief direct, and then just come back for T-O-R. Okay, all right. Everything else there looks great. 34.7 continues on the next page. Everything there looks great. Let's see. Let's see here. I want to make sure I'm not looking over any or missing anything. 34.8. Let's go to 34.8. We've got some consonant compounds, and today we're focusing on initial SPL and initial SKW. So we've got initial SPL and initial SKW. And that, I want you to go through and hit those a couple times. SPL, SKW. That takes a little bit of practice there. Okay. So let's look at these words. We're going to start off with SPL on the initial side. Splat, split, splint, splatter, splash, spleen. Spleen is a long E. Splotch. Now, splotch has a broad A sound, but it's spelled with an O, so we write it with an O. And that's going to be written as S-P-L-O-C-H. Splurge. S-P-L-U-R final J, all in one stroke. Then we have splenetic. S-P-L-E-N. Come back for E-T. Come back for I-T. K. Splenetic. Then we have splinter. S-P-L-I-N-T. Come back for E-R. Splinter. Spleen. Now, I know you've already heard spleen up above, but they've got it twice, and that's okay as extra practice. Then we have splendid. Now, there's two ways you could write splendid. You can either write it as S-P-L-E-N, come back for D-I-D, splendid, or S-P-L-E-N-D, splend, come back for I-D. But if you decide to do it the first way, writing it as S-P-L-E-N, come back for D-I-D, make sure you write it as D-I-D. Don't use your brief for did. Otherwise, the software will separate splen with did. Okay. All right, then we have splotchy, S-P-L-O-C-H, come back for A-E. Splice, long I. Splintering, S-P-L-I-N-T, come back for E-R, come back for final G. Splintering. Splendor, S-P-L-E-N-D, come back for long O-R, splendor. Then we have squirm, S-K-W-I-R-M, squirm. Squirrel, S-K-W-I-R-L. Now that one is going to be a squeeze, S-K-W-I-R-L, squirrel. Okay, one stroke. All right, then we have squelch. Let's look at that one, S-K-W-E-L, and then we have to come back for final C-H because we're writing S-K-W-E-L, squell, and then we have to come back for final C-H. So it's actually two strokes, okay? Squeamish, S-K-W-A-E-M, come back for I-S-H, squeamish. Square, S-K-W, long A-R. Squire, S-K-W, long I-R. Squint, S-K-W, short I-N-T. Squatter, S-K-W, broad A. T, come back for E-R, squatter. Squash, S-K-W, broad A, S-H. Squeak, S-K-W-A-E, final K. Squirt, S-K-W, short I-R-T. Squeal, S-K-W-A-E-L. Squeeze, S-K-W, long E-Z. Squawfish, S-K-W-A-U. Come back for F-I-S-H, squawfish. Squawk, S-K-W-A-U-K. Squishy, S-K-W-I-S-H. Come back for A-E, squishy. All right, now looking at 34.9, those are practice sentences that focus on our new consonant compounds. Okay. They all look pretty self-explanatory to me, but again, if you see something that you're not sure about, let me know. Okay, and that sums up lesson 34. So again, it's very similar to 33. All right, now we do have a Q&A that goes with this lesson. All right, so I'm going to dictate this to you because I want you to get lots of practice before we head into speeds. And I am going to give you a mock Q&A of what it would look like if you were actually in speeds. And I want you to actually transcribe this, okay? So you're going to write it in Q&A on your machine, and then you're going to transcribe. And again, I know that you can see what it looks like or what it's supposed to look like, but that's okay, because if you have questions, you can refer back to it, but it's just more getting the practice of how to how to transcribe that. What does it look like? What does it entail? Where am I using my tabs? How many tabs do I use? And when do I tab? When do I not tab? And so forth. So that's why we're getting all of this practice, why we're in theory, okay? Because you're going to need to know this once you get into speeds. All right. So I'm going to let you know how this would be if you were in speeds, if this were a speed test. So if this were a speed test, I would say this speed test is on page 8. And really this Q&A is called handout 8, okay, with lesson 34. So that's why I'm going to just say this is on page 8. All right, but they will give you a page number and you're going to write that down. Now, I'm going to give you each of the attorney's names. So if you were in speeds, I would say, okay, this is the plaintiff attorney. And you're going to write this down on a piece of paper. Plaintiff attorney, SNU, okay? Plaintiff is always SNU, Mr. SNU, plaintiff attorney. His name's Mr. Pratt. So you're writing this down. Even if you think you know how to spell it, you wait for me to spell it to make sure you have it correctly or correct. So Mr. Pratt is spelled P-R-A-T-T. Okay. Now, defense attorney, If Pelt, Mr. If Pelt. You're going to write that down on a piece of paper, even if you think you know how to spell it. His name is Mr. Drake, and his name is spelled D-R-A-K-E. All right. So again, and the instructor will always repeat it. Plaintiff attorney is Mr. Pratt, P-R-A-T-T. You're looking at your paper where you wrote the names down and make sure you got it correct. Because if you misspell their name, it will be an automatic disqualification if it's a test in speeds. And that's always an automatic disqualification if you misspell an attorney's name wrong, okay? Okay, so plaintiff is Mr. Pratt, P-R-A-T-T, and defense is Mr. Drake, D-R-A-K-E. Okay. All right. Now, before we get started, usually the instructor will tell you who this test is going to start out with. Now, once you get into higher speeds, they may not so much. But definitely in the lower speeds, they usually tell you. So in this case, I'm going to say this test is going to start out with plaintiff questioning. So that tells you, okay, it's going to start out with plaintiff. So you definitely want to start out as striking your SNU and then the question bank. Okay. Now there is going to come a time in this Q&A, and I'm going to give you a heads up. The court's going to come in and interrupt. So you're going to sign in the court. And again, I want you to keep your eyes peeled to the light board so you don't miss a sign change. And then the witness is going to answer the court. So if you have Eclipse software, you can just simply strike the answer bank and it's going to recognize that the witness is speaking to the court. So it'll automatically put the witness for you. And if you don't have Eclipse, then what you would strike is WNS twice, and you're going to get the witness, okay? Now, Mr. Pratt, even though he's questioning, Mr. Drake, defense attorney, is also going to jump in, and he actually asks 3 questions, but he's not the questioning attorney. He just comes in and he kind of jumps in, and because he only asks 3 questions, you're just going to sign him in as If Pelt, and you're writing what he asks, and then you're going to strike your answer bank if you have Eclipse, because it's going to recognize that it's colloquy and it's going to give you the witness. Now, if you don't have Eclipse, then you're going to simply strike witness, and then you're going to get the witness. Now, let's say you accidentally strike the answer bank and your software doesn't recognize it's colloquy and you get an answer bank instead of the witness. It's okay. If it were a test, you just go in and you change the answer bank to the witness, all in caps. So don't ever worry about that if you get, the answer bank versus the witness or vice versa. You can always change it once you're in the edit mode. Okay, so just because defense jumps in and asks 3 questions doesn't mean he's the questioning attorney. It just means he's clarifying something. And then it ends up going back to plaintiff attorney. So we like to give you this example because this happens a lot. A lot of times one attorney will be questioning and then the other attorney will just jump in to clarify something. But as long as they're not as long as that original attorney doesn't say, I have no further questions or I have nothing further, really they're still questioning. They're just kind of being interrupted by this other attorney, which happens. Okay, so it's still considered colloquy. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and do this practice run through. So I gave you the names. So now you're going to just sign in SNU question. Okay. All right, here we go. Now, Mr. Wilson, the lights that you saw just a fraction of a second before the impact. Were they headlights? Yes, sir. Were they bright headlights? Yes. You could see them. They weren't dim parking lights. Were they? No, sir. They were headlights. Regular headlights. So see, the court jumps in. So you got to keep your eyes peeled on that, on those speakers, so you don't miss a sign change. So the court just jumps in and says regular headlights. Yes, sir. Okay, so it goes back to questioning attorney. So you got to sign him back in so you know who's questioning. So SNU question bank. Well, now it was dark at the scene of this accident. Wasn't it? Yes, but there was a street light there. Okay. Where was the automobile after the accident? It was right at the intersection. Now here's defense. He decides just to jump in, so you need to identify him. if pelt. Did you see the truck immediately after the accident? Yes, sir. So defense again. So sign him in as if pelt. Have you also seen pictures of the truck that were taken the evening of the accident? Yes, sir. Again, he's just jumping in, so you got to identify him again, if pelt. Would you say that the truck looked like the photographs that you saw today? Yes, sir. Now, back to the original questioning attorney. So you got to re-sign him or her in. It's a new question. All right. Let me ask you, Mr. Wilson, do you know if there was a tailgate on the back of this truck? No, sir, I don't. Do you know if either of the doors of the truck had been wired shut? No, sir. There comes the court. You don't know? No, Your Honor. It goes back to questioning attorney, so you have to sign him in. It's a new question. Do you have any connection with the trucking company? No, sir. No connection at all? No, sir. All right. So hopefully when you were writing that Q&A, you remembered not to put ending punctuation. The only time we put ending punctuation is when we have dashes, when someone gets cut off. But even if you forget to do the ending punctuation with the dashes, it's okay. You would just change that in the edit mode and add your 2 dashes or your 2 lines. Remember, 1 dash is 2 lines. So again, if that were a test in speeds, I would give you all the proper names. So I would give you Wilson for Mr. Wilson. You won't always get the Mr. Mrs. because you have it actually written down on your machine, so you would know from what you had that you have Mr. But I would give you the spelling for Wilson and any other proper names. Okay. So, and I'm sure you realize that you have a few new briefs in that Q&A, which is why it's so important that you get those down. I'm sure you heard automobile. You remember hearing automobile, AUBL, along with some of your new concepts like fractions. You have to flag that so it doesn't look like fracks. Okay. Your Honor, YURN. And again, just a little reminder, if you look at that second page on line 11, your is lowercase, honor has a capital H. Just a reminder there. So really study the outline of this. When you go to transcribe this, really look at the way that it's supposed to look. If you notice on line 1, the byline by Mr. Pratt, it's all in caps. It's to the furthest part of the left margin as possible. Bylines are always at the far left, the furthest that you can go on the left side. Okay, there's always a colon by Mr. Pratt, colon, and then the next line's where we have the Q. So you're going to tab in once, and then you have your capital Q, tab in again, and then start the question. Okay, then on line 5, notice that you have 1 tab, then our answer, tab again, and then you have yes, sir. And then after you sign in SNU question, after that, when you're writing this, all you have to do is write QA each time you identify this, the question and the answer. The only time you have to re-identify the attorney is if they get cut off. And if you notice in line 10, that's when he got cut off. The court came in and said regular headlights, and then the witness, you need to identify him as the witness because he's answering the court. Yes, sir. And then on your machine, hopefully you identified a SNU question again for line 12. You need to know that SNU. If you don't identify him, it's too hard. You don't want to ever have to guess, was that plaintiff or was that defense questioning? Okay, so always identify. And then if you notice in line 19, defense jumps in. He doesn't ask for permission. They don't always ask for permission. Sometimes they just jump in. He says, did you see the truck immediately after the accident? Line 21, the witness says, yes, sir. He actually asks 3 questions, and that happens. Line 22, have you also seen pictures of the truck that were taken the evening of the accident? So make sure you don't have a byline there. It's not, you don't use a byline there. Reason being is because Mr. Drake is not the questioning attorney. Mr. Pratt is, okay? Mr. Drake is just jumping in, clarifying something. That's why the witness is referred to as the witness there, because it's considered colloquy. Okay, colloquy is when 2 people are speaking to each other, whether it be 2 attorneys speaking to each other, or an attorney speaking to the judge, or an attorney who's not the questioning attorney is clarifying something with the witness. That's all colloquy. Okay. And then again, the second page, if you look at line 3, there's our byline. Notice it's at the far left margin. And then line 4 starts our question. Tab, question, tab again. All right, period. Let me ask you, Mr. Wilson, So really study that so you can kind of get a feeling. Notice each page has 25 lines. I want you to really study the punctuation so that you can understand that. If you have any questions, I want you to let me know. Okay, so if that was a little fast, just go back and listen to it again until you have it down. That was pretty slow. I probably read that at 40 words a minute. So we want to get up to, you're going to be going right into speech, which is 60 words a minute. So we'll start picking it up pretty soon. Okay, and it's going to seem fast at first, but I promise you, you will get used to it. So don't be hard on yourself and say, oh my gosh, I'm not keeping up and she's reading at 50 or 60. It's okay. All of a sudden, one day it's going to click. And then when you get into the next speed, it's going to seem hard. And then all of a sudden, one day, it's going to click after you practice. Okay. All right. So that is our Q&A for that, for lesson 34. And that concludes our lesson. So I will see you soon in the read back portion of lesson 34. All right, have a great day.